absolutely free. So you can bring a friend, and you're more than welcome to attend. I come from anywhere around the world that they happen to be. Um, but you can also get a certificate of attendance for coming, and you can also get all the links, and these are recorded sessions. We have over 100 now, so we cover lots and lots of different topics, from science and math to teaching with monsters like we're talking about today. You can find your certificate of attendance and and all the other past resources and the bookmarks and everything when you visit the bit.ly ELT links, okay? And that is case sensitive, so it's capital ELT LINK lowercase s. I love monsters. I want you in the chat box to just type up famous monsters that exist um, in in our everyday lives, in movies and songs. So what are some famous monsters that you know about? There's one that is shown here that is a great character for teaching different types of vocabulary and stuff. Monsters are a part of our society. Kids love monsters, adults love monsters. We love to watch scary movies. Teenagers love monsters. They love watching movies about vampires and zombies and werewolves. And so monsters are definitely a part of our culture. And Sesame Street got in tune with this a long time ago. They realized that monsters could help teach language, and they could make it to where kids would want to repeat different things that the monster would say. So you have Elmo, who's a nice monster. So you have different types of monsters. Okay, like a panda in Thailand. Okay, and Faisal says, Ghost Story. Salva says, Shrek. Yes, definitely Shrek is a famous monster. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Shrek might be the best monster ever. So you can see monsters don't always have to be scary. So we can teach with monsters, and we can teach about monsters. We can introduce this to our language learners because they'll identify with the characters. There are monsters in TV, like Cookie Monster, who's a very famous monster. There are monsters in movies. Right now, Twilight is very hot with different types of teenagers, and those vampire movies and movies like that are really something and zombies are part of the culture as well. And you see a lot of students and kids wearing skeletons and stuff like that in a lot of books. Twilight was a book, but there are other comic books as well that have monsters within them as well. Zombies seem to be part of that as well. And video games, there's a lot of video games with, there's World of Warcraft, there's the different types of zombie ones as well. So I'm going to share with you some different activities that I've done with my students, young learners, and I'll throw in stuff for adults and teens as well. So it'll go back and forth, but a lot of this stuff I have done with my young learners. And my favorite activity, where my young learners love it, is drawing a monster. Now, I actually get puppets that look like monsters. So if you have a puppet that looks like a monster, that's even better. In this particular activity, you can have either a sheet of paper that you give all your students, and if they're very, very young learners, I just did this with a group of 6-year-olds in Croatia. I gave them all a blank sheet of paper, and then I put different crayons on the table, and I described to them my monster. I said, oh, I have a monster. And then I dictated to them, my monster has 3 eyes. My monster wears a sombrero. My monster has a big mustache. My monster has a big beard. So you give the directions, and the students draw the monster based on those directions. Now, you can pair students up. If they're a little bit older, you may want to pair them up, and then student A describes the monster for student B. So first of all, you say, okay, we're going to create a monster. Just draw any monster you feel like drawing that comes to your head. But they cannot show it to each other. And then they get in pairs, and then they try to draw each other's monster. You can do this with technology as well. There's definitely some things you can teach. And one of my favorite apps to do this with is the Learn How to Draw app. So I'm going to show you what that is because my adopted sons, they really like this one as well. They love Learn How to Draw. And the great thing is you'll see that Learn How to Draw has monsters. So it's this free app that you can get. And when you get it, it tells you if you want to draw monsters or trains. So we're going to do monsters. And we're going to do start the lesson. And when you start the lesson, basically it breaks it down into two screens. So in the first screen, you're trying to draw whatever is, it gives you instructions. And then in the second screen is where you get to draw that monster by following the instructions. So you can do this with this kind of app as well. Now you don't have to do this particular, you can always just do the regular drawing, which my adopted sons draw. This is one of the monsters they were able to draw with it. And this is why, because when you actually have it, you get a nice board like this. It's blank, and you can choose the brushes, you can choose the different colors, and it's really simple to draw. And then you just save it to your photo gallery. So that's a great way to do that. You can do this with EduCreations as well. And this is actually a monster that a student drew on EduCreations. Now the benefit for doing this with the free EduCreations app is that you can also record your voice describing the monster, which is something you want your language learners to do. You can make a 9-minute video, you can go back and you can edit, and you can see the process. So you can see the process while student A is saying, my monster has 3 eyes, and one is in the top, the center of his forehead. Then you can do that. Another great monster site that my students absolutely love is the Learn English Monster. And let me tell you why. This is the best. If you want them to make monsters online, this is the best one to do. And the reason why is because the kids, they learn the parts of the body, nose, arms. They get to do all of this with it. They get sounds as well. It was made for that. But then at the end, after you have made your monster, you can hear your monster sing karaoke. You can make your monster dance, sing, sneeze, shout, and even blow up. So your students will have hours and hours of fun making their monsters sing and blow up. They just, when I was teaching in the summer, my students absolutely loved it. It was what they wanted to do every single day. And if I told them you could make your monster later, then they would listen to whatever I said. So I'm going to kind of play you in the background the song so you can hear it. So
I'd like green arms, please.
That's the monster talking. Can you hear him? Again, here's him singing.
I got funny arms, I got a funny head. You can color me yellow, you can color me red, 'cause I'm a monster. Yeah, 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 'cause I'm a monster.
So it's very funny, and it's a really catchy tune as well. And your students will start singing, I'm a monster, because they always do. You can make your monster talk. The way that you make your monster talk is you can use something called Blabberize. So after they draw the monster, they upload a picture of it into Blabberize, and then you can make them say different vocabulary and stuff like that. Or they can introduce themselves. They can say, hi, I'm Max the monster. I like pickles, and I like to go skiing. So they can say a lot of different things like that as well. And then after they make a monster, I have them create a monster planet. Now, they can do this using kids' favorite Play-Doh, okay? So they make it there, and they describe things about the planet. So they'll say, this planet has volcanoes everywhere and rockets, and then after they say and describe what their planet is and in where their monster lives, then they have to say what the monster, what special features the monster has to live on this planet. So if it's a planet where there's hot lava and volcanoes, then this monster probably has armor or something on his body to be able to get through all the lava. So this helps the students because when they're describing, they're always very imaginative and creative, but they have to match it together. And then, of course, they create a monster story. Now, there's a lot of beautiful art on storybird.com. It's the easiest way to create a story. So your students can create a story that's embeddable. You can put this on a blog or you can put this on a wiki. But my favorite is littlebirdtells.com. That's one of my favorites. And the reason why is because your students can upload their drawing, and you can see here, they can embed it, and it makes sort of like a little video, and then they have to add the voice. So they add text and voice. And for language learners, that's so important to have the text support and then also the visual support. And also they get the audio as well. They get to listen and stuff as well. So it makes a movie, and then they can embed it on their blog or wiki. They can even draw on Little Bird Tells. So they could draw their monster on Little Bird Tells. And what you want them to do is make sure that they put the monster's planet, and what the monster does. So it's not, they have to add all this information that they came up with to make their monster story. I am in love with a monster called Domo. This is actually a Japanese monster, but they have little short clips on YouTube for Domo. So one of the reasons why I think Domo is great for teaching is because if you go to these short clips, then these little 2-minute videos, they're all in Japanese. So if you're teaching students that aren't in Japanese, and a lot of them are just silent, so you can create a script for these videos. You can have your students, your teenagers will like to do that as well. They'll like to create scripts for these silent films, and they're really funny. You have to see a Domo script. It's so funny. Embedplus.com is great for adding these kind of scripts. So you can have your students embedplus.com, you have your students add any video from YouTube, and then they can make scripts, they can add annotations, they can crop it, all kinds of good stuff with embedplus.com. So that's what I would use. You can see there, I added some text here, and the annotations are on the side as well. You can put what time it comes out, and this little pop-up box right there comes out. So there I said, I'm looking for my brother, because this is the Domo episode. It's only 2 minutes, and it talks about his brother. So your students will have a good time writing the scripts for this. Another great thing about Domo is it has a website. And so if you go to GoAnimate.com, you can make a video with Domo. You can create a Domo digital video story. Now this one's in Spanish, but you can make it in English, of course. You have the little Domo characters, you have backgrounds, you have different characters you can add as well. You don't have to just solely make it about Domo. There's a lot of other characters in there as well. And then they can tell a Domo story that way. And they can embed it. It's a great, great thing. Another idea is to join the Monster Global Project. This is an incredible wiki that I found out about a long time ago. It's the Monster Project Wiki Spaces. It's been going on since 2010, so that's when I first found out about it. And they do the same kind of activity where they pair up and draw monsters, but they give you so many resources, and you get to do this with with students from across the world. So you could be using this with your classes, and you could be coordinating it in English with somebody in the UK, in the US, or abroad. So there's so many wonderful countries that are here that have been doing the project. There is also a bunch of lesson plans. One of my favorite lesson plans is they have a monster mind map. So they have the monster in the middle, sort of like the watermelon here, and then they draw the different features and stuff of the monster. What's his name? Where does he live? What are his special skills? Is he dangerous? What does he like? What does she dislike? What are their favorite things? What do they do? So it really helps with, it has tons of lessons. Preparing them to describe their monster, preparing them to draw the partner monster, analyzing monsters, preparing students for adjective work. So it gives you different steps when you're teaching. For adults and for teenagers and for college students, well, they're really into zombie apocalypse. So here's an activity where you get to, it's a lesson plan designed to prepare for a zombie apocalypse. Now, the great thing about this activity is that he has a Google Drive presentation that goes with it. So you can just show that to your students, and they have to prepare. They basically come up with a scenario. Ooh, we're having a zombie apocalypse. What are 8 things you're going to grab before we go? And then they have to come up also with weapons. Now they get into groups, so you split your class into little groups, maybe 4 or 5, or into 3 or 4 different groups. It's up to you. And then they write down their list of what they're taking, but then they have to compare, and then they have a debate of who actually ends up being, which group would more likely survive the zombie apocalypse. And he even has questions for you that you can ask, like what happens when you get bitten by a zombie? How can you prevent zombies from attacking you or you becoming a zombie? Another activity is from One Stop English, and I really like this activity as well. This is where you take the daily routines of monsters, zombies, ghosts, and aliens. So you practice the third person, and then you write about the routine. So this is my monster. His name is Max. In the morning, he wakes up and he brushes his teeth um, with toad, I don't know, slime, with slime. He eats eyeballs for dinner. So, I mean, there's different things that you can do with it. You can make it very visual, and the way you would make it visual is create an infographic of the routine. Your older students will enjoy this as well. Here's a one that I found. It's called 24 Hours in the Life of a Zombie. So what does this zombie do? And it has like little visuals. And so your students can do this with a tool like Visually or ThingLink. So if you go to Visually, which are different types of infographic creating tools, they're very easy. And ThingLink allows you to where you can go and you can create links within it. And so another activity that you can do with this, so you can do the routines and you can make it drawn just like that. Or what you can do is you can also use an infographic to group, you can have them do monster research. So your students, you can divide them into small groups, okay, maybe they're 3 or 4, and then you give them each a monster to research. So one, you can have them draw. One can have vampires, one can have wolves, they can even name the monsters to you. One can have zombies, one can have, I mean, there's so many kinds of monsters out there. So you can have them King Kong, different famous monsters. So they're going to research, and they have to research the different characteristics and stuff about the monster. So then they make how dangerous, they put this all together, all the research, and an infographic that's describing how dangerous their monster is. Then you can compare the infographics later, and then you can see which is going to be the most dangerous. Is it going to be the zombie? Is it going to be the werewolf? Is it going to be the vampire? So you have all your groups come together. Then afterwards, you can have the groups create a survival plan. How are they going to survive if the world is full of different, vampires or shapeshifters, all kinds of things. Another activity is World of Warcraft. Now, World of Warcraft has been shown to teach millions of adults language learning skills. A lot of adults actually have played, millions have learned English just by playing World of Warcraft. Now, World of Warcraft has different types of monsters in it, and it's you have to have a console to play it. So you can play it in the computer labs as well. This is a game that your students play. It's a sort of a virtual world that they go into. You can go to the WoW in School, pbworks.com, and they have tons and tons of lesson plans for you. So you can even spend the whole entire semester really with different types of World of Warcraft lessons. And your students will like this a lot. They get to meet people from around the world. There's even a free ebook. So you can see where I'm pointing with the arrow. It says A Hero's Journey. And so you can document the different types of journey that the hero goes through and stuff. along that lines is playing role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. I've done this with my students and me as well. It's very good for creativity, but a lot of times there's a lot of things that are really good for language learning. For example, creating characters. So when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons or any type of role-playing RPG, RPMMG, all of these games that you play, when you play it, it's like live action. It's LARP, live action role play. So you create your characters. You can be a fairy, you can be an elf. There's all kinds of monsters as well that you can be, and you're in this make-believe world. And you write down these characters, you write down their features, and then when you're role-playing it, when you're doing the live action, then you think on the spot. You get dice to roll, and then you have to think in the spot and be in your character. So this is really good for language learning because it contextualizes language. It also makes it to where they take the language that's in their head already, and then they get to use it. Activity, and within the ProLinks, so when you look at the ProLinks, you're going to find a whole bunch of Dungeons and Dragons lesson plans, World of Warcraft lesson plans. So I know I'm kind of running through this fast, but when you check on the bookmarks, you're going to find lesson plans written for this. Create a virtual monster and Moshi Monsters. Now, Moshi Monsters does have where you have to pay. So you don't have to pay for some of the games, but it has a lot of good language games. You get to build a house for your monster. You're taking care of a virtual monster, just like a Tamagotchi. And then you can write a digital story. You can make a comic with your monster. You can play different phonics games. You can play word searches. So there's a lot of language learning that goes. There is a free version, but it doesn't save any of the stuff. So just FYI. But it is a very cool site. Some other cool monster sites, well, teachyourmonstertoread.com. This is a program I just read about. It's a virtual, this is absolutely free. And this is for toddlers. This is for, if you're teaching anywhere from 3-year-olds to about 6-year-olds, this is a fantastic site. It's a virtual world. They play different games on the computer, and it's all about those English sounds. It makes the English sounds. They repeat the English sounds. They go with monsters, and they answer different vocabulary and play games. So it's a great, great, great. And it's supported. Well, they have Tom Barrett, who has left a nice comment about this particular website. So if you know anything about Tom Barrett, then you know whatever he's usually behind is really incredible. So it's good. It's pretty good for young learners, especially toddlers, very young learners. You can read monster stories. Now, learnenglish.com has tons of great, monster stories. They can see the language. They can listen to it. And it has all kinds of activities that go with it as well. This one's called the Monster Shopping Trip. So you can find some at different levels as well. But for adults and older students, you may want to use experienceanomaly.com. This is a sci-fi fantasy story, and there's lots of monster stories out there. If you look at the graphic novels that are in iPads, or even if you look at them that are just around, then you can find tons and tons of monster stories. There's Frankenstein, that's a famous monster story that we teach a lot. There's The Wild Things, Where the Wild Things Are. That's a great famous monster story. So there's so many monster stories out there. Experienceanomaly.com is this 300-page fantasy story with lots and lots of animation and different reading. So you can click on the different monsters, and your students can find out different things about them. And it also even shows them the type of aircraft the monster rides, and it tells them little statistics and facts. And even cool thing about it is these monsters pop out in augmented reality. So if you have the augmented reality app, not only do they learn about the monster, but the monster will pop up and talk to them so they can interact with the monster. So this is really good if you want to get like high school students and older students involved. I used to teach Goosebumps. Goosebumps is great. It has different monster stories in it. And Scholastic has a really good site for Goosebumps. So I would definitely recommend Scholastic, the Goosebumps. So if you can usually find them in most libraries, but the good thing about it is when I was teaching my 8th graders, they really would listen to and read this at home. So there's lots of different activities and things like that as well that comes with this. And you can hear it in the background. There's also a show, so you can even you can even play those shows as well. There are great ways to learn with apps and monsters. So I'm going to show you a few apps that I love. Here's one called Monsters versus Zombies. It's for a K through 5, and it's a great app where basically you learn math with zombies. So it's pretty cool that the students get to do that. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Or not. Sorry, it just crashed. Okay, so we're going to press play. And you can do different ones. You can do addition, you can do subtraction, you can do multiplication. There's so many things you can do. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. You have different levels, so this is a great way to get your students to do things at home as well. And this is what it looks like. So it's going to ask you, when you have the zombie coming up, you can see the zombie has like 2 numbers, and you have to type in the right answer, and then it turns that zombie into a human. So that's that. For older learners, you can show them, you can do a little bit of CLIL. These are word problems that have to do with the haunted house. This is called the haunted house. So they read a little story, and then they have to solve the word problem that goes with that particular story. There's a monster physics app. Now, I absolutely love this. You don't only have to use this for science. You can use this for language learning as well. And here's the reason why. Because you get to invent things. You get to use your creativity. You get to make a monster, and that monster, you enter your name and everything like that. I'm going to name him Eek. Okay. Okay, so I just saved my monster. I made my monster. And now I am going to it has different types of, it has a story about your monster, and then you can invent things. So here, you design your own inventions, then you get to see your inventions move and are interactive, or are very active on the iPad. So it's really cool. It's a free app. It's called Monster Physics Lite. There's another one, and I forgot to write it down. I'm sorry I didn't add the slide, but there's one, and there's a guest on here named Jake, who's probably going to like this because he likes music. And so with this one, you make music with monsters, and you get a monster for each sound that you're making. So you get to remix and have different monster music as well. The kids will really enjoy that. They'll have a lot of fun. You can DJ with monsters. So I have the monster. Okay, so I'm going to click that monster.